I'm Joan Starr, California Digital Library, and I guess to contextualize, I just like to mention that I think this is a bit of a follow-on to Mike's presentation yesterday about herding cats, though I'm not a cat person, so maybe we'll think about this as corralling dogs. I'm not sure. Let's see here. This is the basic frame for what I'd like to talk about. What does agile mean? What keeps us from being agile, and what can we do about it? Now, this slide is really the Agile Manifesto's definition of agility, but I'd like to say, as a disclaimer, that almost everything I'm going to talk about this morning really would apply to even a very broad understanding of agile, as in the opposite of stuck. So, I'll be talking about agile programming and agile project management using this particular definition. But even if you're using more traditional project methodologies, you may still be experiencing problems in getting response from your institutions, being able to move forward with projects, and so forth. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I guess sorry, I'm getting the hang of it here. There are rather these sort of 5 key characteristics then. You've got the short time boxes. You chop things up into iterations that result in a functioning build. You value real-time, face-to-face communication over documentation. Your team includes programmers and subject matter experts, and you're actually working in the same place. And progress is measured in working software. So this is straight from, the Agile Manifesto. I didn't make this up. What this looks like, your project plan is composed of short 1 to 4 week iterations. So rather than a very broad kind of waterfall type plan that has to go iteration, 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 you're going to actually have a bunch of little plans. At the end of each one, you have a working prototype, even if it's a prototype of only part of your functionality. At the end of each one of these periods, is it whether it's a week or a month or whatever you've decided upon, maybe you pick 6 weeks, whatever it is. At each one of those, your team gets together and you make a new projected set, you make a new set of goals about what you're going to be able to do in the next cycle. Okay? Somebody at the table is a subject matter expert. And you're meeting very often, the group of you, very often, in small amounts. You may have 15-minute stand-up meetings every day. Again, you measure progress. Are we making progress? Well, is it working? Is this piece working? So, the reason for thinking about this, why think about this, is that this results in quickly addressing problems that your users have. So it actually makes your users happy. The other side of this is that it's a really exciting way to work. Well, in a self-serving moment, I'm quoting 2 University of California sources here, including our own Roy Tennant. But the point is, we actually do need to do this, all of us. Now, I am a newcomer to this world. I've been with CDL for 10.5 months, something like that. And CDL is my first job in the academic world. So I've actually really been noticing what it is about the academic culture that keeps us from being able to embrace this kind of work process. So I'm just going to share my thoughts here with you, and I think there will be time for comments, questions, debunking, whatever. My argument then is that the academic culture itself has some characteristics that stand in our way. Those are that I would argue it's actually what you might call a non-participatory democracy. People don't want to be involved, but they do want to say no at the tail end of a process. Right? Also, they don't want anyone else to represent them. It's not a representative democracy. They want to be at the table or not, but they would also like always to be able to say no. And this has certain implications for project success or lack thereof. The first of these is, remember I said you want a subject matter expert there in your group with you? It is very difficult, and I know I'm preaching to a large choir here, difficult to find that single subject matter expert who is willing to say, okay, I will speak for the faculty or the engineering department or whatever. And so you end up with a committee that is actually composed of each person on the committee is representing another committee, each person of whom is actually a representative from yet another committee. You get, this lovely house of cards, committee-based house of cards, something like that. Okay, my second argument here about what is standing in our way is a general observation about how we, and I'm saying we here, kind of speaking generally about academic library projects, how we manage projects. It's related to the academic culture. Very often, you cannot identify a single owner or sponsor for your project. Very often. Relatedly, or because of this, you may need to get input or a decision from a very diffuse decision-making structure. And if you happen to get that decision right at the end of the term and all those committees turn over by September, you might have to go back, right? And, well, the result here, these things go on and on and on, and all your plasma has just fed out into some sort of bin, and you get my point. So, this means when you have no one person or even no one group that can make decisions when requirements, the project schedule, the project funding come into question, time passes, inevitably. You have to wait until the next committee meeting, and they meet quarterly. You have to wait until the next academic year, something like that. And you see the last dark hair on your head turning gray, right? This exhausts many of us. I mean, truly, as you know. I don't need to tell you that. And the worst thing is, by the time a decision is made, the thing is already obsolete. Okay, my third bugaboo. Hiring practices. I would love if you'd raise your hand if you are happy about your institution's ability to hire new folks in a timely manner. Let's see hands. One person. Oh, two. Excellent. Congratulations.
I'm not in an academic library, though.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. We're all jealous. So, I'd argue that the hiring systems that we all work with were built for the academic job market, and they don't fit very well for the technology market. In our case, I can only speak about our case, many months elapse between when we imagine, oh gosh, we've got a gap here, or we have some new funding, we need somebody to do Project X. Many months elapse before we can even post the position. Never mind get through the interview cycle and so forth. There are libraries where the technical lead, the administrative department head, let's say, of the technical area doesn't even have hiring and firing control over their staff. And lastly, some folks are funded through grant monies. And so you don't have the option of moving people around as work shifts. Project teams, therefore, may not be able to get the help when and where they need it. And again, time passes. It's a theme. Time passes. Okay, lastly, our own work practices. Many of us value space and privacy over working close to one another. Now, this particular characteristic of programmers is shared across the world of programmers. This is nothing special about people who work in academic libraries. All of us would like to put a bubble around ourselves, at least for part of our work. We'd like to have it be in a certain kind of shape before we share it. Additionally, many of us don't have much experience in estimating how long it will take to complete a certain amount of work. Time estimation is a seldom practiced task. Lastly, oh, good, thank you. I was thinking, now why is he holding up that number? It's just a thing about numbers. Suddenly. And the last item is simply, are we measuring progress? I know that in some groups this is going on a lot. In others, it's almost as though you're just on this sort of death march. We'll work on this until it's done. We don't know actually what the metrics are that we're trying to reach. So what this results in, you can see I'm sort of talking about characteristics and then kind of what this implies. Because of these characteristics, we are at risk of losing time in communicating with people who are far away. We are trying for perfection before we show things off, though you guys obviously aren't in that group. Well, we aren't able to sit down at the beginning of a month of hard work and say, in the next 30 days, I think I'll get this task, this task, this task, and this task done. And worst of all, we may not be working on what our users actually expect. So, what can we do about this? I really think that given that none of us are the chief executives of any of our universities, we have to look at what is under our own control. And so I'll argue that you can start small with a new project and call it a pilot. This will address, to some degree, the challenges that I've talked about, and I'll try to make that case, and then you can shoot me down. I think that if you label something as a pilot, you can buy it a little elbow room. Set yourself up with a steering committee and, put in there whoever you politically need to put in there. That group becomes the sponsor of your project and make it really clear that that's their job. Get them to pick your subject matter expert. And make sure this person has a real role in the project. In agile programming, this is the person who's going to build your requirements with you as you go along. Now, one of the key characteristics of agile project management is that you do set a time to market goal. And that's how you build your, chopped up iterative cycles. You shoot for that first version with, the 80-20 rule. Go for the 80%. And in order to do that, work on the stuff you know best first. Hiring and staffing, this is, I think this is actually our organization's biggest problem. And we're the least enabled to solve this problem. And so we have some workarounds. You probably do these things too. We can work with independent contractors without it taking 5,000 years. We can set up, standing engagements. We sometimes can do trades. But something to keep in mind for all those things is that the folks who work for you, they deserve and need to get the fun work to do. Use your contractors to keep stuff running. You don't want to give the cool stuff to the guys who are only going to be there for 9 months. Lastly, learn about agile programming techniques. I saw that there are 2 or 3 books up here about those, so some folks will probably leave here with some books about them. The last slide on here, I think I've got some links for you, and so when you go visit this, you can follow those links if you haven't already. You may already be doing this. It is something that if a small team puts this kind of intention together, you can do this on the fly, and I think you'll see exciting results. So that's it from me. I think there's a little less than 2 minutes if there are questions or comments or... Yes?
So one of the things that we're going to try...
Can you speak up or
yeah,
get
great.
Yeah.
One of the things we're going to try at Laurentian University is getting co-op computer science students assigned for 12 to 16-week terms, which seems like good for definable roadmaps. So just wanted to suggest that as an option for the hiring and staffing practices as well.
Thank you.
I have one question. What kind of iteration lengths did you find work best for you? Did they vary, or it said in your slides like 1 to 4 weeks, but how did you arrive at a good length for an iteration?
The projects that I have used this technique for, the 30-day, the month was a good length because it gave us enough time to have a little leeway in a lot of the specific coding kinds of efforts. It wasn't overly large where we had to think too far ahead, but it was more than a week. Since you run into some sort of snarly, awful thing, and it puts you out past your week. The particular agile technique that I've used is the Scrum technique, and in that one you do you set out, okay, what are we doing the next 4 weeks?
So each iteration has like a kind of little design period in the beginning, or a period where you kind of evaluate what you're going to do in the 4 weeks or something?
Each iteration begins with a team meeting, and you literally, at that meeting, the deliverable for that meeting is, here's our work list for this week, and each task has someone assigned to it.
Okay, thank you. Oh, well, one quick one.
For the staff thing, I just wanted to say one thing we're doing at the University of Virginia is staff shares, where other people who want to learn programming come in one day a week, and that's been a good way for us. And I also wanted to ask, I've been getting into agile development as a developer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any recommendations about project management? Like if you haven't done project management, but you're trying to get into that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't speak for the other flavors of agile project management, agile development, but I know with Scrum, there is actually, I think this is rather hilarious, but there is Scrum Master training. And, no excuses. The Scrum Master is the project manager. So Google that and read up on that, and you'll, I'm sure, find way more than you could possibly
Also,
be interested
that
in.
rightmost book up there by Venkat and Andy Hunt, The Pragmatic Programmers, is fantastic.
There you go. Try to win that.
Thanks.